want to look at our implicit kind of project. So step one, if you're looking at the blue paper there, step one, give the formulas for your two equations. What you're going to do is create two unique, fun, implicit equations. So what that means is you're going to come up with some equation, and I'll kind of show you. Here's the equation I'm going to use. Whatever you want to kind of come up with, but just they have to be two different ones. Okay. So the first thing, give both your formulas to kind of explain how you determine them, how you kind of figured out how to find them. So that's the first. So this is the equation I'm going to do my example with here today. Step one is graph it. Now, how do you graph it? The easiest way to graph it is to go on Desmos. So let me bring that up. You go to Desmos. This is x cubed. Is it minus 3xy minus 3y squared equals 0? There we go. Yep. So there is the equation. So I've graphed the equation. And so when I say come up with two unique, fun, best way to do this is go into Desmos and just mess around with what you type in here and see what comes up. Okay? That's the best way to come up with them. So you get to there. Okay? So next step. Graph both your equations online. Conclude your final graph in your report. My thought is there, just print them out. Okay, if you have trouble printing them, we can talk about you sharing with me and I can go print them for you. But just so you have a hard copy of it, I don't think you really want to try to do it by hand and do them really accurate. So we'll just do them on Desmos, put them in a document, and then just print it out. 2, calculate the derivative, dy dx, for both of your equations. So, do you want me to go through, or can we assume you know how to do that?
I hope we can do that.
You can do that. So, if I take the derivative of that, you get to there. Okay, so you find the derivative. Now we go to the next step. You're going to choose one of your two equations. Okay, you only got to choose one to do the next two steps with. 1, determine the points for the horizontal tangents for the equation. Now, what would the slope of a horizontal tangent be? 0. So, I want to figure out where this is equal to 0. If you have a fraction equals 0, that can only happen where? If 0 is on the top. So my answer would have to be wherever that is true, which would tell me y equals x squared. Now, depending on your equation, let's explain what we just did. We couldn't find an exact point. It depends wherever y is equal to x squared. So you may not be able to find a number here. Okay? So here's the hard step. That's the hard part of this. We're going to go back. I don't know if I ever written that. Yep. We're going to go back to our original equation. And I'm going to substitute in this for y. So I have x cubed minus 3x x squared minus 3 x squared squared minus 0. Now you notice I have an equation of only x's, which I can solve. So let's see what we get here. I get x cubed minus 3x cubed minus 3x to the 4th equals 0. That's minus 3x to the 4th minus 2x cubed equals 0. So what I'm finding is, what are the x values where this happens? This is true. So let's factor out. So I find that. So what are my two x's that equal 0? 0 and negative 2/3. Does that make sense? So these are the two x's where that is true, y equals x squared, which means those are the two x's where my derivative is 0. Let's go look at the graph to see how accurate that is. So we have 0. So 0 is right here. Does that look like right here? This is coming through. Look like it's 0. Pretty good. The other one is negative 2/3, which is negative 0.66. So that's about right about here. So that looks pretty good too, doesn't it? Doesn't that look like where it has a horizontal? The last thing we have to do, though, is we want to find the points. The points are x and y. How do we find the y? We got to plug the x's in. So we got to go, do I have another one here? So now we find the y's. So my equation is x minus 3xy minus 3y squared equals 0. I have x is 0. X is negative 2/3. So then what's wrong? Okay, somebody's alarm going off. So now we plug 0 in for x. 0 minus 3y squared equals 0. What does y have to equal there? 0. That's the only thing that's going to equal 0. So we get the point 0, 0. Right? No, it's not your card. Now, that's 0, 0. Does that match with the graph? That 0, 0 has a horizontal tangent? Yep, right there. 0, 0. Okay. So now, the next, we need to find with 2/3. So we have negative 2/3 cubed minus 3 times negative 2/3 y minus 3y squared is 0. And now we have to solve that for y. What do we get? Minus 3y squared plus 2y minus 827 equals 0. And that is a...
I have had problems with it. Yes, you have. For relative, I can't tell.
How do you solve that? What kind of equation is that?
That's a
Quadratic. So we could go quadratic formula, or we could just graph it in our calculator, find the zeros. Okay.
Oh. But it sounds like it. Go out there and check. You have to go swim in the window to get it. It's their car. I don't know. I've had problems.
All right.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
She's had problems with Thursday.
Finally, we do that. We get, if we solve that quadratic by graphing it, we get 2/9 and 4/9.
That's such a weird.
Okay. You're going to get weird numbers because you're just kind of making this up. You're probably going to get decimals as you do it. I picked this one with the idea kind of that the numbers worked out to be nicer. You may get decimals. So we have now
They're not close.
2 points. We have negative 2/3, 2/9, and negative 2/3, 4/9. Now, do you know what a decimal, what is 2/9 as a decimal? Do you know what 1/9 is? 0.22. This is 0.22. This is 0.44 because 1/9 is 0.111, right? So those are our 2 points. Now, if we go back to our graph, you'll notice we have those 2 points. Okay. We have this point here is 2/3 0.44, right? So this point is negative 2/3 4/9. Does that point look like, you can set this, does that point look like a horizontal tangent? Yes. The other one was 2/3 0.22, which would be right here. This is negative 2/3 2/9. Does that look like it's a horizontal tangent? No, it's a point on the graph, but it's not a horizontal tangent. So that is the last question, number 5. Compare your answers from number 4 with your graphs in number 2. Do your answers match the graph? You are going to get some points that maybe match, and you will get some points that do not match, but you found them just going through the process. Okay. So this should be like written out with like it says, explanation should be made with correct notation, complete sentences. You do not have to type this. This is just do the work on a piece of notebook paper, write it down. Okay. When you look at calculate the derivative for both, you should do this by hand and show all your work. You should go through all the steps to show how you find the derivative. However, if you're not like checking your answer on Wolfram Alpha and making sure that you're getting it right, okay, then that's not a very smart plan on your part, right? So you want to do it by hand, and all your work should match, but you should, use calculators and online things to help you make sure that you're doing this correctly as you're working it out. So you should have the work there, but you should have it worked out, okay?